Alright, so we have this fully factored. If you need to know how to factor this, just go back and watch the last video for this problem. But now that we have it factored, we're ready to start finding some key features. Key features. Okay, so we definitely want to look for some holes, and we already know that there's a hole because it's told us that there was a hole at x equals -2. Cancel out that factor, okay? So we say that there's a hole at -2 comma something. We need to find that y value. Let's find some other stuff first, though. So it looks like we have some vertical asymptotes, 2, and we have them at x equals 4 and x equals -5. And then we should put in our roots, or our x-intercepts. Okay, so we're looking up here for the roots and x-intercepts. So we get x equals -4, 6, and 3. And then for y-intercept, it would have been easier to look at the original function. So if you're just watching this, look back at the original, and you see that when you plug in 0 to the top, you get 144, and when you plug in 0 to the bottom, you get -40. So our y-intercept is actually going to be at 0, comma 144 over -40, which is -3.6. Okay, and then the only other thing we can do is find the y value for the hole, and then notice that the degree for this function is bigger on top than on bottom, so there's no horizontal asymptote. There's actually going to be a slant asymptote, and I'll do that division for you in a second so you can see what it is. So first, let's just plug in our hole. So we get -2 plus 4 times -2 minus 6 times -2 minus 3. That's going to be all over -2 minus 4 times -2 plus 5. Okay, so that gives us 2 times -8 times -5 over -6 times 3, which just gives us 80 over -18, it looks like. And 80 divided by -18 is what, study hall? Can someone do that on a calculator for me? Actually, I can just do it right here. Never mind. Okay, so 80 divided by -18, that's going to give us 4.44444444444. So 4.4, we'll say. All right, so we have our hole, we have our vertical asymptote, we have our roots, we have our y-intercept, and we have enough in here to finally do our analysis. Okay, so let's start sketching some stuff on. I'll scroll down a little bit, draw my axis. And Joey, it's not an irrational number because it can be represented by a fraction. I think it's like 4 4/9. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, we have a vertical asymptote at x equals 4. And 1 at x equals -5, so let's draw that in there. Okay. And then we have to put in our y-intercept in our hole. So our y-intercept is at 0, -3.6, which is going to put us about right there. One sec. There. Yeah, that's pretty good. Maybe I'll do it in a different color. That could be fun. Right, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so there it is, 0, -3.6. We have a hole at -2 comma 4.444444444. All right, so we put that in. Let me do something really quick. All right, so -2, and then about 4.5 we'll put it at. Okay, so there's our hole. Okay, so then let's put our roots in. So we have a root at -4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have a root at 3. And then we also have a root at 6. 5, 6, 7. Okay. Also have a root at 6. So now the question is, what is going on? Why is it? This does not make sense. We had to have made a mistake somewhere. Okay, I'm going to pause this really quick and figure out what my mistake is. Okay. No, we're quiet again because I figured it out, all right? The problem is, where's my pen? All right, here we go. This is what happened. We said the whole was at -2, 4.4, but it's 80 divided by -18, which is negative 4.44. Okay, so let's fix this. There should be a negative in here. All right, now let's go fix our graph. They said it couldn't be done, but Mr. Howard figured it out. All right, so here we go. We're at -2, and then we're at -4.4, which is going to be about right there. This is okay now. Before it was not good. Oh, and that needs to be a hole, right? It doesn't need to be an actual point. It needs to be a hole. Okay, this is fine now because now it's okay. Our graph can come down through here, cross through a hole, cross through our intercept, and cross through our other intercept. Whereas before, it would have to go through the hole up here, but then I don't know how it was going to get back down here to go through the intercept if it didn't pass through another route. So that was the problem. And I didn't want to re-record this video because I wanted you to see my problem-solving process as I ran into a problem. And also, I was just sick of recording this video, so I decided to just find the mistake and keep going. I am recording now. Okay, so now we're good. Okay, we just have to do our positive-negative analysis to determine where this thing is positive and where it's negative. Okay, we found all our key features. Let's just double-check that. Yep. Okay, so we know in the middle what's going on because we can just use common sense, right? It's going to be positive up here because it has to cross through the root. It's going to come down and be negative. This is a crosser, and that's a crosser. Okay, so it's going to come down and be negative, right? And then it's going to come and it's going to cross through again, and it's going to be positive. Okay, so we're going to have some type of parabola-like shape in there, but we need to figure out what's going on over here and over here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to plug in. Let's find a point. We're going to plug in -6, and we're going to plug in 5. Okay, so let's plug in -6, and let's plug in 5. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so we know that -6, we're plugging it up here, -6 plus 4, that's going to be negative. We know that -6 minus 6 is also going to be negative. We know that -6 minus 3 is also going to be negative. And that's going to be over -6 minus 4, which is also negative. And -6 plus 5, which is also negative. That's going to give us a negative overall, which means that over here, we're negative. Okay, let's do 5 now. Okay, 5 plus 4, that's going to be positive. 5 minus 6, that's going to be negative. 5 minus 3 is going to be positive. And then we have 5 minus 4, which is positive. We have 5 plus 5, which is positive. So this is also going to be negative. All right. I'm kind of flustered by that mistake I made earlier, and I'm worried about making another one. But I think we're good. Yeah, okay, cool. So we're negative over here. So what's going to happen is it's going to be negative over here, right? It's never going to cross the x-axis. It's going to be positive, negative, positive, and then it's going to be negative over here and never cross the x-axis because we don't have roots there. All right, so we've done our analysis. Let's review. We factored in the last video. We found our hole, we found our vertical asymptote, we found our roots, we found our y-intercept, all right? And we've put everything sketched onto a graph. So now we're ready to actually look at the graphs and figure out which one matches this one. All right, so we only have 2 roots. Oh, we're missing one of our roots over at 6. Okay, that helps. Okay, so we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a root here. It's going to cross. Okay, so this is fine. This doesn't change much. That just means that our graph is going to go negative, cross through, and go positive. So there should be a positive up here too. Okay, so that's going to be that's going to affect our graph a little bit. Okay, so looking at this, we're looking for a graph that has 3 roots, and because that's how many roots we have. And we're looking for one that has 2 vertical asymptotes, one at -5, one at +4. So the only one that has vertical asymptotes at -5 and +4 looks like it's A. But A, and A looks like it has a y-intercept in the right place. Okay, I'm back. All right, so A looks like it could fit because it looks like it has a vertical asymptote potentially in the right place, but A has 4 intercepts, so A is no good, right? B and F both don't have enough sections, and I think we've used one of those already. E only has 1 intercept, and D only has 1 intercept, so it's got to be C. But let's look at why it's C more specifically. So if you're looking at C as we follow along, let me scroll back down to our analysis. On C, it's negative to the left of the first asymptote. It's just got this little like kind of V shape down in the bottom left corner. Hopefully you're looking at these graphs right now. And then it has our little parabola-like shape that we expected to see. It's positive. It goes through the root. It goes through the hole. It comes up through the y-intercept, and then it goes through the x-axis again. It has this little weird, like, kind of misshaped parabola. And then to the right of that, we have the function is negative at first, and then it goes up through the x-axis, and then it goes positive. So C is, at this point, clearly the one it has to be. And we say it's C. So then on your study guide, if you go to the back page where the graphs are, you just fill in the letters that go with the respective graphs that we just worked on. And we're done with rational functions now. Whew.